Viewpoints on the talk station FM 107 AM 1240. Just to remind you, that was Colonel Richard Bew, that's retired Colonel, United States Marine Corps, and again, Democrat candidate seeking the nomination for the 3rd Congressional District. And there are 6 Democrats, so he's one of 6, and we'll be happy to entertain a conversation with the other 5 should they decide to give us a call. Be happy to talk to them. All right, we're going to get into an issue here in just a moment associated, which I'm going to carry on to the second hour, related to the rating services for television and internet, and possibly, I'll find out, the issue of games as well. And as you all know, I am not a big gamer and don't really see a lot of benefit of it, but that's okay. Before I get to that, of course, talking about rating services, I've got some announcing to do. Rating a restaurant. Floyd's 1921 restaurant. It's opening this week. Yes, thank you, Taylor. It is opening this week. We have been waiting, going on summer, almost 5 months since the closure because forced by Hurricane Florence. So this is exciting. Just to give you a heads up, Floyd's 1921 restaurant is opening. And by the way, they've done some major remodeling and improvements to the interior as well. So they took advantage of the situation. They did what they needed to do so as to, reduce the amount of labor necessary in the years ahead. So Floyd's 1921 restaurant. Now it's opening just for dinner for the immediate time. The number, 727-1921. And the number is vital because without that number, without the reservation, you are not eating dinner at Floyd's 1921 restaurant. That's just a fact. Reservations are mandatory, not even optional. 727-1921, and of course the location 4th and Bridges Street, as I've mentioned every Monday night now for months, even though they've not been open. 4th and Bridges Street in beautiful uptown Morehead City, where you'd expect to find an uptown restaurant without the uptown price. Chef Floyd is excited, as are the staff, that they're back to talk to their friends and new acquaintances for dinner. Starting out with dinner. And yes, they will be having their Easter buffet. So that's another reason to remember that number, 727-1921. That's Floyd's 1921 restaurant, and they're opening this week. I know the date. As a matter of fact, I'm hesitant to even say the evening. It will. My comment to you as I stutter through, make the phone call this evening and tomorrow, and they will give you the exact time of the opening. They're still, finalizing some of the details. So I'm hesitant to say exactly the day. I'll find out immediately. Well, I'll find out tomorrow for sure. That's Floyd's 1921 restaurant located 4th and Bridges Street, beautiful uptown Morehead City. Outstanding meals and, of course, outstanding service. We have joining us Tim Winter, and I mentioned the topic of rating. He, the president of the Parents Television Council. And with that, Tim, good evening. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Lockwood. Good evening to you from Los Angeles, to you and to your listeners.
Oh, wow. In the pit of the belly.
Belly of the beast.
Yeah, belly of the beast, but you're in the pit of it right there. Okay, so let's talk about rating services, and I want to bring up all sorts of entertainment services. I know that the television industry has been looking at rating their shows, and I'm wondering, and I'm going to be talking to a group of teenagers here in the second hour of the program, how successful has that rating been, in your opinion?
Well, as a parent, I think it's atrocious. As someone who spent much of my career in Hollywood working, for the TV networks and so forth, it's a system that is brilliant for them. It games the system. It allows inaccurate content to be referred to as, allows explicit content to be referred to as family friendly when it's not. And it allows them to get a larger audience. It allows advertisers who avoid explicit content to be fooled. And it allows children to be exposed to stuff that is harmful, toxic, and wholly age inappropriate.
Now, the other aspect of this, of course, is that so many teenagers and youngsters are gravitating, I like that term, gravitating, because they're actually spinning away from the traditional TV market. So what influence has the rating had on other forms of entertainment, particularly through the digital delivery systems? Name it, your company, HBO, Netflix, what have you. What's happening there? Are they using the same ratings? And because in many instances they're just repurposing many of these same TV shows. Are they using the same rating system? And is there a means to sort of inform and educate the parents?
What you get if you're a parent is a system that is confusing and inconsistent across multiple forms of media. Right now you have a content rating system for movies, which I think most parents understand, PG, PG-13, R, etc. You also have a rating system for television. You also have a rating system for video games. You also have a rating system for music lyrics. And now you have digital media platforms, Hulu, Netflix, Amazon Prime, YouTube, etc., that use some, all, or none, or even some of their own ratings to describe their content. So if you're a parent trying to understand the entertainment landscape right now, it is massive confusion. You're supposed to be an expert on far too many things that no parent can reasonably understand. Mm-hmm. And then you add on top of it that, at least as it relates to television ratings, each network decides for themselves what to rate the show. So it's the standard, at least with the Motion Picture Association of America, MPAA, you have an independent body that rates all movies. But even then, you find that there is increasingly more violence, more sexually explicit content, more profanity now creeping into PG-13 than there ever was.
Tim, the question goes to, have we created a circumstance and an environment where there's no longer a value to the rating system because of I love using this word, the ubiquitous nature of digital media? Are we at the point where there's really no value in a rating system?
I think we're at a point where there's never been a more urgent need and a greater need for such a value. When the analogy I frequently use, and I bet most of your listeners, I bet you've even had this happen to yourself. You walk into a grocery store, you walk down the aisle, you contemplate, maybe I'll buy this product, you reach up, you grab it, you turn around and look at the back, and you see the ingredients, the carbohydrates, the calories, the fat grams, the protein, and you decide, is this something that I want to ingest?
Right.
Or is this something that I want my child to ingest? Just so too do we do that for our children with the food we put into their bodies. So too must we do that for the content, the entertainment content they're putting into their minds, because we've shown, most parents instinctively know, just as scientific research has shown is also, that this does have a long-term and possibly harmful effect on our kids. So we have to there's never been a more urgent need for something.
Wait. Hollywood has informed us on numerous occasions that there is no correlation whatsoever from the violence and the profanity that is displayed on their TVs. I guarantee you they've said this over and over and over again. Yet they're quick to point out that maybe the President of the United States should be banned from any video or any live broadcast, because everything he says will corrupt the mind of, let alone those children, those confused people. I'm never really I'm always confused by the doublespeak of Hollywood. That's my first comment.
And no television network executive would ever suggest to their advertisers that their advertisement's not going to impact the behavior of the viewer.
No, wait, you've got it backwards. The advertising does, in fact, influence. Pardon me, I'm lecturing Tim Winter here this afternoon, president of the Parents Television Council, and he's taking it very well. Thank you very much, Tim. You're very gracious to allow me to lecture you. Every advertising director, every ad salesperson will tell you your message will influence, without question. Everybody will be buying your product. Trust me on that. But the shows that we show and display on our program, the entertainment, that doesn't have an impact. I really am. It's a matter you listen with the left ear to one message and the right ear with the other message. Is that how it's supposed to work?
Well, that's folks in Hollywood think that if a standard is good, then a double standard must be twice.
Yeah, you bet. Yes, I love that.
and look, if I were there in Minnesota or in North Carolina, Morehead City, I would be going to Floyd's 1921 restaurant.
Thank you very much.
but you know what? It's ironic that an industry that builds its entire economic structure on advertisers having an impact on the viewer, that they would suggest that the content doesn't have an impact of their show. How can it possibly have an impact when the commercial's on, but when the commercial ends, the show comes back on, there is no impact. Science shows otherwise. Every reasonable parent understands that there's an influence, and I point out to my friends here in Hollywood who dislike President Trump greatly that if you don't think the media has an impact on the viewer, then how do you explain President Trump? Because there was some media going on there, and
right.
And whether you support him or oppose him, you are almost consumed by the media that agrees with your point of view.
Absolutely correct on that one. Tim Winter, by the way, president of the Parents Television Council. We're going to give you information about the organization here in just a few moments. So I apologize. I jumped right into the conversation with you, Tim. But this is an important topic, and I'm going to be chatting with a group of teenagers here a little later on in the second hour of our program. Every Monday evening, we talk to a panel of teenagers from local schools, and this is going to be the topic, one of the topics of discussion. Looking at this, and let's acknowledge, or shall we say, in the legal term, stipulate to the confusion and, if you will, the cloudiness. I wouldn't even say confusion, the cloudiness of the rating system. What are the alternatives? And I go back to the ubiquitous nature of digital media. Everybody from the age of randomly 7 years and older has a cell phone now. Cell phone has technology which, quite frankly, even I use. Case in point, I've given up watching TV. Part of that is I'm tired of the junk that's on it. That's number one. I do not watch any TV. None. Zero. Zilch. Okay? But I do pull out my cell phone to watch, for example, the Saturday night game, Texas Tech, and who they beat? Anyhow,
Michigan State.
Michigan State, that's right. Thank you very much. Texas Tech. So I could watch the highlights on my cell phone. The ease and access is phenomenal. So what to do? What's the solution to this, Tim?
Well, you have, first of all, let me step back and say that the most important thing as we look at this issue, we are Americans, and we love our cherished right of First Amendment free speech.
Right.
It is the foundation of everything that we do here in our nation, and we are blessed with that right, that no other nation has a First Amendment like what we do. But that doesn't mean we can do nothing. What it means is we have to provide guidance for parents. Let's help parents be good parents by providing wherever those children are, whatever media device they happen to be using to consume their media, give them an ability to make good decisions, making sure that what their child is watching is age appropriate. Give us good guidance and labels.
But the challenge with this is the only way this will work if it's voluntary on the part of the producers. Am I correct?
Well, I know that when we talked about the back of a food box, and that is mandated by the government. So you can mandate something. You can't have the government then telling you what is or is not okay. But what you can do is you can have the government institute and demand a system that objectively lists all the ingredients in a food product, and it lists all the ingredients or all the content examples or content descriptions in an entertainment product. It's also free speech by giving parents additional information that they can make better choices with.
Okay, but I want to bring up the topic, and this is not part of our anticipated conversation with you, Tim, but I want to bring up the topic of the European community, and particularly in relationship to the digital environment, Google and the like, where basically they have set new standards, very strict standards. Is that an option? But before I do that, we've got a caller standing by. Let me get to Ernie and Emerald Isle on this. Ernie, good evening. Our guest, by the way, Tim Winter, president of the Parents Television Council. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Lockwood, as you know, I'm much younger than you.
Thank you.
But I grew up in the era of the Howdy Doody show.
Right.
Saturday cartoons.
Yep.
You might remember those things.
I do, and very much so. Captain Kangaroo. I mean, there was, if you will, Ernie, I'm preempting you. My apologies. And Tim, you'll address this when we get to it. There was a standard that the broadcast industry, quite frankly, was fearful about. They were very, very cautious. They have no boundaries anymore. But back to you, Ernie.
There are none. And I'm sure you're kind of familiar with who my son is and his age.
Right.
He was growing up in the Sesame Street. He was still a young boy. And I found that it was okay when it started. It started to get a little weird. Just a little weird. And then television progressed after that to the point where I really didn't want my kid watching that stuff.
It's because it was part, and Ernie, good point. Tim, to you on this one. Television has taken it upon itself to, if you will, cultural and social adjustments or engineering, cultural and social engineering, has it not?
I think everybody who produces entertainment content has some sort of agenda, even if they don't intentionally mean to.
Okay.
They do have a worldview, and they are expressing that through what they produce. Absolutely true.
Okay, and Ernie, am I correct? And that's what you were alluding to?
Yeah, it's gotten progressive. It's nothing new. It started in the 70s. What your guest is referring to is pretty old. It's gotten so bad now that, as you, Lockwood, I don't watch any TV.
It. No, I
don't watch a bit.
It's a waste. It's a waste of time.
I let my wife watches the Hallmark Channel and cooking shows. That's it. That's television. And I read books while she's doing that.
All right, Ernie, thanks very much for the call. Appreciate that. All right, we're going to get back to this. Tim, can you stay with me through the bottom of through this break very quickly?
I'm happy to, yes.
Okay, I want to talk to you about, what's being proposed in the European community, which is very stringent. Is that an alternative? Get your observations on this. Tim Winter with us this evening. He is the president of the Parents Television Council, and we're going to give you details about the organization in just a moment as we wrap it up here in this first hour of Viewpoints on the talk station FM 107. Viewpoints on the talk station FM 107 AM 1240. It's rating time. It's rating for TV and digital media and games. Our guest this afternoon, Tim Winter, president of the Parents Television Council. Tim, before we go much further, let's just start with the PTC. Tell folks about the website and how they can get involved.
Yeah, the Parents Television Council is here to help protect children from graphic sex, violence, and profanity in today's entertainment media environment. You can come to parentstv.org, parentstv.org. We have a host of educational things where parents can help learn. We also are an activist organization. We want every voice that believes that children are being thrown under the bus when it comes to today's entertainment media environment and how to push back together, channel our voices into one big choir. We have a tremendous impact nationally. On Madison Avenue with the advertisers, right. and here in Hollywood as well.
All right, let's talk about the influence of what's happening in Europe and, of course, greater control predominantly on the digital media. But quite frankly, that's where TV's going anyhow. At least that's my prediction. So is that a solution where basically government has massive fining capacity? And this is on things that are hard to identify. Hate speech, things of this nature. One person's hate speech is another person's opinion. What's the future?
Well, the world stage it is interesting to watch. I think what you see is the similar concern that we're talking about here. Parents need better tools. Kids are being harmed by age-inappropriate media, especially that's being marketed to them around parents.
Right.
And nations across the globe are understanding that there's a problem here. They don't have the same First Amendment protections that we have, so they're implementing their remedies. I think we as a nation can sit back and take a look at what other nations are doing and decide what, number one, is constitutional here, and what of these other ideas are actually effective. We don't need to have a not invented here mentality. We should be able to take a look at what are the very best practices being applied around the country, around the world, that would help parents, that would help protect children, help their health and safety and welfare, but also pass constitutional muster. It's not easy, but it would require some hard work. But you know what? I think our children, our future generations are worth it.
Tim, we've only got about a minute. The real challenge here has been, of course, and you're talking to a terrestrial broadcast station, so we have FCC regulations we got to be very careful about. In the area of internet and digital delivery of products, including, I would wonder, even cable, that's considered a utility. So those rules don't apply to utilities in many regards. Am I correct on that?
You are correct. Those would be absolutely then voluntary. But if corporations are going to step up and be responsible corporate citizens, most of the corporate executives are parents or grandparents. Right. They understand that there's a need here. They also understand that stuff that's rated, that's explicit, that's harmful, actually can be more profitable if it's rated as appropriate for children when it's not. So there's a requirement for honesty and integrity in the system. That's something that we have to be able to hold people publicly to account. And it is having an impact on kids. I urge you, when you talk to your teenagers today, ask them how many Kardashians they can name, and then ask them how many apostles they can name. And tell me that media doesn't have an impact.
You good point. Our guest this afternoon, Tim Winter. Taylor liked that question, by the way. Tim Winter. Tim, stay with me for a moment very quickly. Thank you for being with us. President, Parents Television Council. By the way, that website, parentstv.org, parentstv.org. You're listening to Viewpoints.